All right, so firstly, I'll go through the overview of the group presentations and just remind you that the final exam is this Friday, so it's August the 28th at 7 p.m. So at that time, I will be emailing you a Google form, which is going to be the final exam, 100 questions, the exactly same format as the midterm exam, so it's open book, true, false, and multiple choice, and it's on all of the chapters. So it's cumulative, which means there's just a few questions that reference chapters 1 to 5, and then the vast majority of the exam is chapters 6 to 11. Okay, all right. So with respect to the group presentations, I've now sent you the score sheets for the presentations. Just use the second one I said. The second one has a small correction in it that I prefer you use instead of the first one. All right, and as you'll see on the score sheet, it has each group's topic from groups 1 to 5 in the order of the group assignments, and then there are 5 questions for each group. All right, so you're scoring, all the groups to which you don't belong. So just don't put any scores in for your own group. I wouldn't count them anyway, but you should. But just don't do that. Just leave those blank. And I've configured the form so that you can leave blank answers. All right. Some of you have already done this with me in other classes, so you're pretty used to it. But for those of you who don't, after you've completed the form, again, send it back to me. And once I receive your form and it asks for your name on the top of it, you get a 10 out of 10 for participation with respect to this group exercise. All right, so let's go to the PowerPoint that I prepared for the group exercise. All right, and as I've already indicated to you before, I did this afternoon, I only have YouTube videos for groups numbers 1 and 4. All right, so we're going to watch the videos using this PowerPoint for group number 1, which is social media and cybercrime, and group number 4, targeted attacks, phishing, etc. So for the other groups, 2, cyberbullying, 3, search and seizure of devices, and 5, conducting online investigations. We will have to work with you, the participants in those groups, so that you can basically present your video and whatever else is involved in the presentation live, basically, to the rest of the class. So does anybody have any questions before we watch the first video? Everybody good? All right. So we're going to watch basically group number 1, social media and cybercrime. Oh, Tom, you had your hand up? Yeah.
Yes, I was just wondering if we could just play the pre-recorded video in class.
Well, you can play it as long as you do it to the class, right? Whatever you've got, if it's a Zoom or MP4, that's fine. But you just have to basically play it when it's your group's turn. That's perfectly fine. So is that the question? Okay. All right. So we're going to watch this. And again, everybody scores this based on the metrics I've given you in the score sheet. And then we'll move on to group number 2. All right. So let's start with the first group on social media and cybercrime.
So for my group's presentation, we did the social media and cybercrime. And so we are going to talk about the major impact
Surprised it does that. Sorry, guys.
Cybercrime has on social media users and what social media users should be aware about. So in this slideshow, we're going to talk about how social media has become more and more developed and has threatened a vast amount of people's lives. Cybercrime can happen even when a person is unaware that it is happening to them. It could be in a spurt of a moment that you get an email saying, click this link to win $50 towards Walmart. And you could click that link, put in your personal information, and that information could go to someone behind a screen that could technically ruin your life. There are several types of cybercrime, including phishing, identity theft, hacking, child pornography, hate crimes, terrorism, and much more. Because anyone can access the internet, it is also very simple for someone to track you, follow you, or eventually hack or threaten you.
Social media is any digital tool that allows users to quickly create and share content with the public. Social media encompasses a wide range of websites and apps. Some, like Twitter, specialize in sharing links and short written messages. Others, like Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, are built to optimize the sharing of photos and videos. What makes social media unique is that it is both broad and relatively uncensored. The ability to share photos, opinions, and events in real time has transformed the way we live and the way we do business. Somehow, social media is affecting cultural, economic, and social life of the people, and it has become an essential part of everyone's life. Here are some advantages and disadvantages for social media. It is crystal clear that there are advantages and disadvantages to everything in everyone's life, and that includes our social networking habits. The practical advantages and disadvantages of social media are a subject of frequent discussion. Participation in social media by the general public has increased sharply over the past few years. Using social media is widespread across all ages and professions and is common around the world. Social media enables users to connect with others and create a community. It's more about building relationships than simply announcing or posting and not engaging with others. It is undeniably changing the way one communicates. Advantages. Educational process. Using online social networks in the educational process has been supported by several educational technology researchers who have emphasized the benefits of technologies, rising of social networking sites, and a general interest in students have attracted attention to the use of internet tools to develop distance education. Worldwide connectivity. We have the chance to connect with others and share information through social media. It's the communication that brings us all together and it's easily accessible. Online marketing. You can build a relationship with your customers that makes them more likely to use your services. You can get the feedback right away. Information spreads fast. All the important things such as major news, events, missing persons, weather information, etc. can cover in the world in a moment. It lets us share anything with others. Instead of convincing a publishing company, social media allows artists to satisfy a million people and keep creative control for themselves. It helps you to achieve your goals. If your objective is to be healthier, joining a group with the same purpose and making long distance friends help keep you accountable can go a long way towards making those goals a reality. Encouragement and support are crucial and social media can help with that. Here some of Here, some of the disadvantages of social media are privacy problems, sharing your online location or getting in trouble at work because of tweeting something inappropriate or sharing too much with the people can cause you some issues that sometimes can't ever be solved. It changes lifestyle habits and it is sleep disruption. Since using a social media network is all done on some computers or mobile devices, it can sometimes motivate too much sitting down in one place for too long. Staring into the light from a computer or phone screen at night can negatively affect your ability to get a proper night's sleep. Lacks emotional connection. The quality of a conversation when using social media is unpleasant because you cannot sense the emotion or interest from the other person. It makes you wonder if they mean what they say. It reduces family intimacy. Texting, Facebook, Twitter, etc. separate us from our families more than we actually think it does. When a family is spending family time together and watching a movie, in reality, most children are on their phones rather than watching the film with their parents. So these were a few disadvantages. The debate about whether social networking is good or bad is expected to continue. There is nothing to be nervous about if you and your children use social media sites in moderation. So, if you or your children are worried about using social networking sites, don't be. Just keep your software update, double check information before you believe it, and keep your privacy settings updated too. And if social networking is getting you down, take a break. After all, when you are using it correctly, it improves your life. Cyber Cybercrime. It is also known as computer crime, the use of a computer as an instrument to further illegal ends, such as committing fraud, trafficking in child pornography and intellectual property, stealing identities, or violating privacy. Cybercrime, especially through the internet, has grown in importance as the computer has become central to commerce, entertainment, and government. Most of the cybercrime is committed by cybercriminals or hackers who want to make money. Cybercrime is carried out by individuals or organizations. Some cybercriminals are organized, use advanced techniques, and are highly technically skilled. Most cybercrime is an attack on information about individuals, corporations, or governments.
So one of the major topics of cybercrime are phishing. Phishing is a cybercrime in which a target is contacted by either email, telephone, or text message by someone who's posing as a legitimate source or institution. This is just so that they lure the individuals into providing them with personal information, banking information, credit card information, or even passwords. That information that they give that person is then eventually used against them, which can result in identity theft and financial losses. Some signs that you can kind of notice when you receive a phishing email would be the unofficial from address, meaning that it is a fake address and it's non-existent. It's an urgent action that is required, so it will have like a little red flag beside it. Check the web address if it's like an official link or if it takes you to some phony, fake website. If it asks you to click on a link and you end up doing that, provide them a fake password so that it's not a real one that you use. And actually, you can put a phishing software on your computer or laptop to help, block those phishing emails that you can receive.
Another type of cybercrime that takes place on the internet is child pornography. This is the documentation and distribution of photos and videos of children involved in sexual activities. These images are then sold online to pedophiles. These pedophiles may also participate in visiting online chat rooms hoping to lure children into situations for sex. Canada's Criminal Code provides protections against all forms of sexual abuse and exploitation of children. Some of these child-specific offenses include all forms of child pornography, including possessing, accessing, making, and distributing child pornography, the use of the internet to communicate with a child for the purpose of luring or facilitating the commission of a sexual or abduction offense against that child, all forms of sexual contact, touching, as well as any invitation to engage in sexual touching, whether committed in Canada or committed by Canadians or Canadian residents abroad, and the offering up or procurement of a child for illicit sexual activity, including prostitution. Canada works closely with international partners in combating child pornography, and this includes the exchange of data and the tracking of online predators, and also sharing the best practices and lessons learned in combating child pornography on the internet. In 2007, Project Clean Feed was implemented to represent a partnership between cybertip.ca and Canada's major internet service providers aimed at reducing accidental access to child pornography and discouraging those trying to access or distribute them. Through this project, cybertip.ca maintains a regularly updated list of specific foreign-hosted internet addresses associated with child pornography. Hate crimes are another popular type of cybercrime. The general definition of a hate crime is a bias-motivated crime in which the offender is motivated by a characteristic of the victim that identifies the victim as a member of some group towards which the offender feels some type of animosity. In Canada, it is defined a bit differently. It's defined as a criminal offense committed against a person or property that is based solely upon the victim's race, religion, nationality, ethnic origin, sexual orientation, gender, or disability.
To help us look more deeply at what can and should be done to stop the spread of lies and hate online is Taylor Owen. He's professor of media ethics and communication at McGill University. Taylor, thanks for joining us. I know you think we need to invest in digital literacy too. That's one component of all of this, of course. But I want to focus tonight on regulation. Should social media companies be allowed to regulate themselves at all anymore?
I think no. I think they've proven time and time again that they have created a product that, while tremendously valuable and able to scale their business models for them globally, has a whole range of negative externalities in our society. They're causing some negative things inside our democracies, and that is exactly the type of thing for which we have governments.
And why are governments so slow to regulate, or at least put in rules that require some transparency when it comes to things like digital election advertising, so Canadians know who's paying for a political ad when they see it on Facebook or Instagram? Why is it taking so long to regulate?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, partly because it's really complicated, right? Like these companies, these big digital global platforms are publicly traded private monopolies with incredibly profitable business models and shareholders who demand continued growth. And they extend so far into our lives that regulating them isn't just a matter of one thing. It involves a whole suite of different policies to get at these set of problems. But the other piece is that for a very long time, these companies have been selling the argument that in order to create all the positive things that they do, the free speech, the connecting us, the digital economy that they provide, the innovation that they stimulate, that they cannot be regulated. That regulation would hinder all of those positive things that we all know exist on these platforms. I think increasingly, though, that's just untenable. And governments are frankly fed up with these platforms promising to self-regulate, promising to deal with these harms that are increasingly clear on their platforms, and not doing it. So we're in a moment where governments are revisiting that relationship.
Do we even know the extent of the threat in Canada? Who exactly is exploiting our social media ecosystem and who could interfere in an election?
Yeah. We don't have a great idea, in part because we actually haven't been monitoring and studying this space in the same way they have in other countries, which is something we have to change as well. But what we do know is what has happened in every single democratic election over the past number of years. There's this very similar pattern of foreign governments engaging and seeking to divide citizens against each other during an election, of political parties and activists using the very tools that are designed into these platforms to manipulate voters, to suppress votes, to micro-target people with ads that are designed to change their behavior in very sophisticated ways. There's a common set of activities that have emerged in election after election after election, and there's no reason to believe Canada's immune from that.
All right, Professor Taylor Owen in Vancouver, thanks.
Thank you, appreciate it.
How to protect yourself against cybercrime. Keeping your software and operating system up to date ensures that you benefit from the latest security patches to protect your computer. Using antivirus or a comprehensive internet security solution is a smart way to protect your system from attacks. Antivirus software allows you to scan, detect, and remove threats before they become a problem. Having this protection in place helps to protect your device and your data from cybercrime, giving you peace of mind. Never give out personal data over the phone or via email unless you are completely sure about the line or email is secure. Be sure to use strong passwords that people will not guess and do not record them anywhere. Or use a reputable password manager to generate strong passwords randomly to make this easier. A classic way that computers get infected by malware attacks and other forms of cybercrime is via email attachments in spam emails. Never open an attachment from a sender you do not know. Another way people become victims of cybercrime is by clicking on links in spam emails or other messages or unfamiliar websites. Avoid doing this to stay safe online. Keep an eye on the URLs you are clicking on. Do they look legitimate? Avoid clicking on the links with unfamiliar or spammy looking URLs. If your internet security products includes functionality to secure online transaction, ensure it is enabled before carrying out financial transactions online.
All right, guys. So that's the end of group number 1. All right, so let's move to group number 2. So group number 2 is dealing with the topic of cyberbullying. So is there somebody in group number 2 who wants me to assign them to be the host so that they can put up?
Yes, that's me.
All right, Tom, is you? All right, so let's see if I can. How can I figure this out now? I've got you here. So how do I do this? I've done this before. Just trying to figure this out. Here we go. Okay, Tom, you're the host. I'm not getting any sound. Is anybody? Can anybody hear this?
this group, there is myself, Ariana, Lexine, Tom, and Pete. And beginning off with the presentation is going to be Tom speaking about cyberbullying.
All right, so cyberbullying has been broadly defined in Canada as the deliberate, willful, and repeated harm caused to another person online. The bullying can be done over so many digital devices like social media, instant messaging apps, electronic email, and gaming sites, or simply when a child or teen becomes the target of action by others that are intended to embarrass, humiliate, torment, threaten, or harass. On the other hand, kids call it hating, drama, gossip, or trolling, but whatever it is called, it is a very serious issue. Who does cyberbullying affect? Cyberbullying can target people of all age, and it is more common with younger people as early as the age of 8 or 9, but the majority of cyberbullying takes place in the early teenage years. Who are the common predators? Studies have shown that cyberbullying originates more often between current and former friends, schoolmates, spouses, dating partners, and work colleagues than between people who have never met. How does cyberbullying affect different social groups? Studies have also shown that those affected are marginalized the most. Cyberbullying includes higher risk groups such as youth and LGBTQ community. It also found that mostly females, particularly young women and males between the ages of 15 and 29 were twice as likely to be bullied and cyberbullied. So I'm just going to pause it and skip it because we had a malfunction here. So I'll play the video after the whole presentation is done. From the recording, face-to-face bullying is different from cyberbullying. Cyberbullying can be relentlessly widespread when compared to face-to-face. It can reach a victim anywhere and at any time. Cyberbullying is not partial to anyone's location, while face-to-face bullying requires one's immediate presence. Examples of cyberbullying: revenge porn and distribution of intimate images. Revenge porn mostly happens when couples have taken explicit photos for fun, and then these are taken without permission by one of the partners and used as a means of revenge. Because these intimate images often depict explicit videos or images and are distributed without consent, the partners can feel betrayed, depressed, or even suicidal. The cyberbullying legislative process in Canada. The first process, the Cyber Safety Act, was created in Nova Scotia to provide safer administrative and court processes to help address and prevent cyberbullying in 2013. It was then struck down in 2015 because critics felt it violated on the alleged perpetrator's freedom of expression under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom. However, this was replaced by the Intimate Images and Cyber Protection Act in 2013. What is intimate image as defined in the Canadian legislation? The Criminal Code defines intimate image under section 162(1)(2) as any recording, film, or video recording in which the person is nude, is exposing his or private region, or is engaged in explicit sexual activity, in respect of which, at the time of the recording, there were circumstances that gave rise to a reasonable expectation of privacy. And lastly, in respect of which the person depicted retains a reasonable expectation of privacy at the time the offense is committed. What's led to cyberbullying gaining recognition in the legal system? There are two cases. First is the case of a 15-year-old girl called Amanda. She was bullied face-to-face at school and online due to nude pictures that was exposed without her consent. Her classmates saw these pictures, started rumors, and teased her. Of course, Amanda, being a young and vulnerable girl, blamed herself. She then went to her basement, made a recording about the situation, posted it, and then ended her life. And the second case is similar to this, but this is a high-profile cyberbullying event in Canada. And the victim was Rehtaeh Parsons, a 17-year-old girl from Nova Scotia. At the age of 15, she was allegedly the victim of sexual assault. Without her consent, a picture was taken during the assault, which circulated. After she learned of this, Rehtaeh became withdrawn and depressed. Unable to deal with the emotional and psychological pain, she committed suicide. What was the effect of these cases? First, these cases sparked review to how the educational and health system responded to the incident. This review brought forward several recommendations and public outrage, which caused changes in law enforcement about the dangers of cyberbullying and sexting. This discussion helped strengthen existing Canadian laws, and in 2014, Bill C-13 was subsequently passed. Hopefully, this new law will prevent future tragedies.
How common is cyberbullying today? Over the past years, the internet has evolved as well as its users have grown. From 600 million to over 3 billion users worldwide. Cyberbullying can impact any individual, no matter their race, sexuality, or gender. According to statistics from iSafe, cyberbullying occurs around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and is more common between teenagers and young children. Nearly half of children have been bullied once online, and 1 in every 4 have been bullied multiple times online. More than half of kids who have been bullied online have not told their parents or another adult that they were the victims of cyberbullying. According to the Pew Research Center, 93% of teenagers between the ages of 12 and 17 surf the internet, and youth spend more time on the internet than any single activity besides sleeping. Kids admit bullying each other online beginning as early as the ages of 8 years old. Effects of cyberbullying. Cyberbullying affects individuals mentally, emotionally, physically, behaviorally, and psychologically. Victims of cyberbullying describe themselves as feeling virtually powerless, while compared to their perpetrator, who is very powerful and intimidating. The reasons for this vary. However, the target or the person who is at the aim of the attack is convinced that the bully has unlimited power and control over them. A victim of cyberbullying has feelings of sadness, fear, embarrassment, humiliation, and even isolation. Victims often blame themselves for the situation and do not know how to resolve their dilemma.
Canadian legislation for cyberbullying, differences between civil and criminal law. Civil law, this is the branch of law that deals with property rights, personal dignity, freedom from injury under civil law. Under civil law, there are 3 approaches to cyberbullying. A cyberbully may be engaged in defamation. Defamation is when the person who is bullying causes harm to someone's reputation by spreading false information about that person. In general, defamation that appears temporarily is called slander, and defamation that appears permanently is called libel. The person cyberbullying may be creating an unsafe environment by making the target feel that she or he cannot go to school without facing violence, teasing, or exclusion. A person is responsible for any circumstances that he or she might reasonably have guessed would happen. Therefore, a person who is cyberbullying, who suggests that a depressed student should kill herself, would be liable if the student actually did kill herself. Criminal law. This branch of law determines which actions are crimes against the state. In criminal law, there are 2 approaches to cyberbullying. Harassment is a crime under the criminal code. Harassment is when something a person says or does makes someone fear for his or her safety, or for the safety of others. Criminal harassment is punishable by up to 10 years in prison. Defamatory libel is a crime under the criminal code. It is most often treated as a crime. If the libelous statement is directed against a person in authority and could seriously harm his or her reputation, defamatory libel is punishable by up to 5 years in prison. Publishing intimate images without consent is a crime under the criminal code. Publishing intimate images without consent was added as an offence in 2015. Section 2 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms guarantees freedom of expression. Factors that influence cyberbullying title. Standard multiple regressions revealed that together loneliness, empathy, and self-esteem predicted levels of cyberbullying, victimization, and perpetration. Low self-esteem predicts greater cyberbullying, victimization, and perpetration, such that those with low self-esteem were most likely to report experiences of cyberbullying. Low empathy for oneself predicts higher levels of cyberbullying perpetration. As empathy decreases the likelihood of cyberbullying perpetration increases. These findings indicate that self-esteem and empathy-oriented interventions may successfully address the cyberbullying and behavior. Thus, self-esteem or empathy-based interventions are recommended to address cyberbullying.
Cyberbullying and sexting. What is it? Sexting is the sending and receiving of images and videos depicting sexually explicit content. The term is commonly used to describe the sharing of sexual photos, typically by means of cell phone. How common is it? In Canada, research indicates that sexting among young people is a frequent occurrence. According to a 2014 MediaSmart study, 8% of students in grades 7 to 11 with cell phones access sent sext. How does sexting lead to cyberbullying? This problem arises when young people are under the mistaken belief that their images will remain within a trusted relationship and will only be viewed by their significant other. Many of these images border on child pornography, and although this is not always the case, these compromising and often demeaning images can result in a young person placing their health and reputation at risk. Or an adult may encourage a webcam session with a young person after a short flirtatious session that involves grooming, which is a process whereby an offender builds trust, fulfills a child's need for love, promises to be exclusive with them, and desensitizes them with sexualized conversation. Then they find their friends and family on social media. The offender may also have recorded the victim masturbating or flashing. A monetary demand will be made with the threat of sharing these images or videos with any contact made during the grooming stages. Why is it important for law enforcement to get involved? Law enforcement should get involved not only because these sexualized images are considered child pornography under the criminal code, but also because once these images are shared, the subjects in the images are vulnerable to the criminal conduct that has been termed sextortion. Sextortion refers to the exploitation by threats, cyber extortion, blackmail, or similar acts of coercion to extract sexually explicit material from a person with the intent to victimize that person further. Law enforcement plays a significant role in the building awareness about these risky behaviors and advising victims about how to deal with these difficult situations, and should always investigate complaints of sexual coercion and extortion of children. When police get involved in cases of internet luring, they can help calm highly emotional situations, restore balance to a victim's life, and answer questions that victims and their families may have. Prevent and report cyberbullying. It is essential that parents set boundaries to prevent children from taking sexually explicit images, to set restrictions on their use of technologies. They should also educate their children on these topics of grooming techniques used by these predators. Parents, teachers, caregivers need to be aware of all of these steps to prevent and report cybercrime, beginning with installation of parental control softwares on their children's devices to prohibit these kids from going to chat rooms on social media sites, to explain to the youth that they should not post any pictures or messages that can embarrass them or anyone else. Once these are posted, it is out of their control whether someone else could forward it. To encourage the kids to tell an adult immediately if they or someone they know are being cyberbullied. To also keep evidence of cyberbullying. They can do this by recording the dates, times, descriptions of the incidences, and save and print screenshots, emails, and text messages. And finally, use this advice to report cyberbullying to web and cell phone server plans, law enforcement, and children's schools. And those are our references. And that is the completion of our presentation. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. I know.
When we're mean, we might say or do things that hurt others. We might be feeling angry, upset, or jealous. It could happen once, or maybe even twice. Being mean is not okay, but bullying is much worse. Bullying is when someone uses their power repeatedly to hurt or upset someone. It could be hurting them physically or calling them names and saying hurtful things. So then, what's cyberbullying? Cyberbullying's like bullying, but it happens on the internet or on a device like your phone, which can make it kind of different. With cyberbullying, it can feel harder to escape because it can happen anywhere, anytime. Also, it's easier for cyberbullies to hide who they are. Plus, other people online could see what's happening and even gang up on someone. If you see someone being bullied, in person or online, what can you do? Give them support. It helps to show that you care. Be an upstander. Stand up for others and say something to the bully. Report what you see and tell a trusted adult. So, what will you do if you see cyberbullying?
And that's the end. Thanks.
Okay, Tom, so thanks very much. I appreciate that. I'll remove you as being a host. I think. Now, where do we find that again? Okay, good enough. Okay, guys, so that was group number 2. So now it's group number 3, dealing with search and seizure of devices. So does somebody want to be the host for the purposes of taking control of this part of the presentation?
Yes, Miles, I would like to.
And who's that, Kate?
Kate.
Yeah, Kate, hang on. All right, Kate, it's all yours.
Miles,
Yeah?
do I share the screen, right?
Yeah, you share the screen, whatever screen you've got. There you go. Okay, you're good to go, it looks like. Have you started, Kate?
Yeah, I had. You can't hear it, so.
No, we can't, not yet.
Okay. I don't know how to get the volume.
You just need to share the computer sound.
How do I share the computer sound?
You have to check the options and then you just scroll down and you see it.
The options in PowerPoint or I don't know what you're talking about.
Options on the Zoom app software.
Okay. options. Show grid view. Sorry, I am 100% new at that. Optimize share for full screen video view. Is that what it is? Or
No,
share computer sound. There we go.
yeah.
Yeah, if you're sharing, Kate, you need
Yeah.
to optimize it.
Yeah, I shared computer sound. So I think, let's see if it works. Just let me know if you can't hear it.
Search and Seizure of Personal Electronic Devices
Good,
by
good.
Kate, Carrie, Taylor, and Stacy. Historical overview. Before 1982, the Canadian law on search and seizure was not devoid of legal principle or standards upon which the police and other state authorities could act. However, in light of the reality that evidence was admissible no matter how it was obtained, there was relatively little jurisprudence relating to search and seizure powers, and there was no mechanism by which the judiciary could assess the lawfulness or reasonableness of such powers. Moreover, in the absence of constitutional standards and constraints, there were relatively few such laws, certainly by comparison with the present day. Since 1982, there have been many developments in the law of search and seizure. Some of these were seminal decisions by the Supreme Court of Canada. Others have consisted of statutory responses by the federal and provincial governments to charter jurisprudence. One striking consequence of the passage of Section 8 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms is that there is considerably more law on search and seizure than previously.
Canadian law concerning search and seizure of electronic devices. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The purpose of Section 8 is to prevent unjustified searches before they happen, not simply to determine after the fact whether they ought to have occurred in the first place. Charter Section 8. Everyone has the right to be secure against unreasonable search and seizure. Charter Section 24. Anyone whose rights and freedoms, as guaranteed by this charter, have been infringed or denied may apply to a court of competent jurisdiction to obtain such remedies as the court considers appropriate and just in the circumstances. Section 24(2). Where in proceedings under subsection 1, a court concludes that evidence was obtained in the manner that infringed or denied any rights or freedoms guaranteed by this charter, the evidence shall be excluded if established that, having regard to all the circumstances, the omission of it in the proceedings would bring the administration of justice into disrepute. The Criminal Code of Canada. Interception. Section 184(1). Every person who, by means of any electromagnetic, acoustic, mechanical, or other device, knowingly intercepts a private communication is guilty of a. An indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for a term not more than 5 years, or b. An offense punishable on summary convictions. New Criminal Code of Canada. Saving provisions. 184(2) subsection 1 does not apply to a. A person who has the consent to intercept, express or implied, of the originator of the private communication or of the person intended by the originator thereof to receive it. B. A person who intercepts a private communication in accordance with an authorization or pursuant to section 184.4, or any person who in good faith aids in any way another person who the aiding person believes on reasonable grounds is acting with an authorization or pursuant to section 184.4. D. An officer or servant of Her Majesty in Right of Canada who engages in radio frequency spectrum management in respect of a private communication intercepted by that officer or servant for the purpose of identifying, isolating, or preventing an unauthorized or interfering use of frequency or of a transmission.
Canadian court cases of search and seizure of electronic devices. The expectation of privacy in cell phones. Canadian courts found that users of cell phones containing private and personal information have a reasonable expectation of privacy. It is by a case-by-case basis in regards to the totality of circumstances that determines whether an individual has a reasonable expectation of privacy. The 2009 Polis case, the accused had left his cell phone charging in a stairwell of the apartment building. The court found that the fact that the phone was in charging and contained private information indicated that the accused intended to retrieve the phone, and therefore the phone was not considered abandoned, and the court concluded that the accused had a reasonable expectation of privacy in the cell phone based on the fact that it contained highly personal information. Recently open questions to whether the expectations of privacy could extend to text messaging, and this was marked in the case of Markenhan 2017. The Supreme Court ruled that the individual may have a reasonable expectation of privacy and electronic conversation in some cases, and that text messages that have been sent and received may therefore be protected against unreasonable search and seizure. Search and seizure of cell phones incidental to arrest. In the 2014 Ferron case, the Supreme Court of Canada maintained that there is a lower expectation of privacy during times of lawful arrest. According to the court, found that a police officer may search a cell phone incidental to arrest where A, the arrest was lawful, B, the police had a reason based on a valid law enforcement purpose to conduct the search and that the reason is objectively reasonable. The valid law enforcement purposes in this context were protecting the police, the accused, or the public, preserving evidence, or discovering evidence, including locating additional suspects in situations in which the investigation will be stipend or significantly hampered, absent the ability to promptly search the cell phone incident to arrest. The nature and the extent of the search are tailored to the purpose of the search, and the police take detailed notes of what they have examined on the device and how it was searched. The court in Ferron cautioned that the police power to search a cell phone incident to arrest is not a license to rummage around in the device at will. The court also held that one's decision not to protect his or her cell phones with a password does not indicate any sort of abandonment of the significant privacy interests one generally will have in the contents of the phone. Search and seizure of computers. The 2013 case of Vu. This case concerns the search of a computer found in a house that the police were searching with a search warrant. The issue before the Supreme Court of Canada was whether the search warrant that authorized the search of a location was sufficient to authorize a search of a computer found in that location. The general principle of search law would suggest that the answer should be yes. Generally, a warrant to search the location authorizes the search of anything in that location in which the sort of evidence being sought out could reasonably be expected to be found. However, in Vu, the Supreme Court unanimously held that the general principle did not apply to computers unless the warrant explicitly specifies. In Vu, the general rule of search laws were modified because of the special privacy issues that presented themselves in the search of digital devices. The court reasoned that it is difficult to imagine a more intrusive invasion of privacy than the search of a personal or home computer. Computers potentially give police access to vast amounts of information that the user cannot control, that they may not even be aware of, or may have chosen to discard and may not be, in meaningful sense, located in the place of the search. These factors, understood in light of the purpose of Section 8 of the Charter, called for specific pre-authorization. Compelling cell phone providers to provide personal information. The 2016 Rogers Communication Partnership case, the issue that was before the courts was the compelling of cell phone providers to provide personal information. The courts held that Canadians have a reasonable expectation of privacy in the records of their cell phone activity. Accordingly, the courts held that the Crown's production orders compelling cell phone providers to provide personal information of cell phone users that had used the cell tower nearby. In this case, the 21 addresses given by the police for investigation purposes was overtly broad and infringed on Section 8 of the Charter of Rights. Search and seizure of electronic devices when crossing North American borders. The criminal search powers incident to arrest and search powers authorized by warrants. The Canadian Border Service Agency believes that they may also search one's cell phone upon an exit or entry at the borders pursuant to the Customs Act. They base this on an interpretation of Section 99(1)(a) of the Customs Act, which states that an officer may, at any time up until the time of release, examine any goods that have been imported and open or caused to be opened, any package or container or imported good, and take samples of imported goods in reasonable amounts. In the case of Gibson 2017, the court held that this definition of goods includes the purpose of Section 99(1)(a) of the Customs Act, data stored in any electronic device, including cell phones, that is in actual possession of or in accompanying baggage of traveler at the time they arrive at borders and commence dealings with custom officers. However, goods did not include data that was stored in the cloud or stored remotely on devices that are not in possession of the traveler. Now we're going to watch a quick video and gives us more details of the seizure of electronic devices when crossing borders.
Think the contents of your smartphone are private? Well, think again if you plan to head to the States this summer. Civil liberties groups are warning that Canadian border guards have powers you might find surprising. Sheila Scott is live at the Peace Arch crossing. And Sheila, talk about a timely warning.
Well, a lot of people are going to be heading south into the U.S. for the long weekend. But what if you're heading back north into Canada and the border guard asks not just to see your phone, but also for the password? A lot of people don't know their privacy rights, and that has some concerned. We're all used to border guards asking questions when crossing into Canada.
They're definitely thorough. They're definitely serious.
But what about the personal information on your phone and electronics?
I don't think that's fair for them to look at our phones.
The public really doesn't know what their rights are at the border.
That's why the BC Civil Liberties Association has published this privacy handbook meant to help people not just ask to hand over their devices, but also their passwords.
In that moment, what we recommend is that you ask, do I have to provide my password or not? Hopefully they say no, but for the most part, we think that they're going to say yes.
CBSA officers are allowed to do a cursory search to look at things that already exist on the device, like photos or messages. For people who refuse to punch in their password,
you risk losing access to your device for maybe even months on end.
The CBSA rules are similar to what Canadians face when entering the U.S.
In the U.S. secondary inspection, I frequently see U.S. officers going through Canadians' cell phones.
Numbers obtained by CTV News show between November of last year and July of this year, about 9,300 people had their devices looked at by the CBSA. They claim the searches are only done under certain circumstances, but it's not clear what those circumstances are.
What we're hearing and what we're seeing is that it's happening as a routine measure.
The best advice may be the easiest.
Don't put crap out on your devices. Be careful and cognizant of what you've got out there. Too many people aren't. They're careless and they don't think it matters. It matters a lot.
Okay, Sheila, so what should people...
Sorry, I don't know why that cut off.
How search and seizure of an electronic device works in Canada. In order for law enforcement to search and seize a device, a warrant is needed. This is due to Section 8 of the Charter of Rights stating that everyone has a right to privacy. In some cases, a warrantless search is allowed. If the circumstance is portrayed as incidental to the arrest, law enforcement may assess the situation as exigent and justify a warrantless search. A warrantless search can also be done if consent is given from the owner of the device.
A Canadian court has police can conduct a limited search of arrested criminal suspects' mobile phones without getting a search warrant. On Thursday, Canada's divided Supreme Court approved the increased police powers by 4 votes against 3. The ruling demands that the search must be directly related to the circumstances of the arrest. In my view, we can achieve that balance with a rule that permits searches of cell phones incident to arrest, provided that the search, both what is searched and how it is searched, is strictly incidental to the arrest, and that the police keep detailed notes of what has been searched and why, Justice Thomas Cromwell wrote in the opinion. The 3 judges, who opposed the decision, said warrants should be sought in all but rare cases. Police officers will not be justified in searching a cell phone or similar device incidental to every arrest, Cromwell wrote, adding that allowing a narrow search does not give the police a license to rummage around in the device at will. In practice, only recently sent or drafted emails, texts, photos and the call log may be examined, as in most cases only those sorts of items will have the necessary link to the purposes for which prompt examination of the device is permitted, he continued. There are fears that the new police powers breach the public's right to be free of unreasonable searches and seizures. The judges in the minority also said the existing law already provides flexibility where there are exigent circumstances for a warrantless search and should be restricted to cases which threaten the safety of the public. The intensely personal and uniquely pervasive sphere of privacy in our personal computers requires protection that is clear, practical and effective, Judge Andrew McCarrick-Gotsonis wrote for the minority. A Canadian court has.
In court, the evidence found on electronic devices is determined if it is admissible or not. If a warrant was needed to search but none was presented, the suspect could argue that it was a breach of the charter. However, it can still be argued that the evidence is the most useful for the case and still be admitted into evidence whether a warrant was presented or not. The court uses the 4-part test to determine whether the evidence will be used. The 4-part test includes the following. The arrest must be lawful. The phone itself must be a part of why the person is arrested, making it truly incidental. The nature and extent of the search must be tailored to the purpose, and the police must take detailed notes of what they have searched on the device and how they searched it.
Conclusion. The growing use of and dependence on cell phones, smartphones, and other mobile devices provide a range of challenges for law enforcement. Mobile devices hold and capture critical evidence, and it has been apparent that law enforcement must understand. They must understand and be well informed about the laws of search and seizure, grounds for seizing evidence, and what steps should be taken when investigating a crime involving mobile devices. The court cases mentioned in this presentation provide guidance concerning the search and seizure of mobile devices by law enforcement as they relate to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, as well as sections of the Criminal Code relating to search and seizure and respect for guaranteed rights and freedoms. It is important that law enforcement understands the meaning of essential principle in the Criminal Code known as reasonable expectation of privacy. To conclude, when police respond to any kind of incident involving a mobile device, it is important that they understand the inherent risks of carrying a mobile device so that they can share advice about how to increase security to protect a mobile device from loss, theft, and/or a more targeted attack on their data. Above all, it is critical that police balance their interests in conducting a thorough investigation with that of an individual's expectation of privacy. It is important to recognize that law enforcement faces many challenges related to mobile device technology and that they require a thorough understanding of the subject as it continues to evolve and grow in scope.
And that's the end of our video. Thank you.
Okay, Kate, thank you very much, everybody in your group. Appreciate it. Okay, so that's it for group number 3. So we're going to go back to, oh, sorry, I have to disable you, Kate. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm back on. All right, so I'm going to then go back to my PowerPoint and group 4, which I have on the PowerPoint. So here it is. All right, so let's get this.
Hello everyone, we are group 4 and our topic is on target attack. These are the stuff that we will discuss in our presentation. Hi everyone, welcome to Jury 39064906. I'm your professor, Dr. Bennett, and today's topic will be on target attack. Remember guys, 10%, if you participate, 10% will go towards your participation grade. So please be mindful of that. So our first thing we'll discuss is the definition of cybercrime from a law enforcement perspective. Can anyone give me the definition of cybercrime?
Yes, I certainly can. Cybercrime refers to any crime where cyber, the internet, and information technologies such as computers has a substantial role in the commission of a criminal offense. Cybercrime may be broken into 2 categories, technology as a target and technology as an instrument. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. So technology as an instrument, cybercrime. Could you explain more on that, Tyler?
Yes, pure cybercrimes often involve the theft and exchange of personal or financial information, which extends to technology as instrument cybercrimes. Here we can see a graph of technology as instrument versus technology as a target cybercrimes.
Thank you, Tyler. So as it relates to the criminal code and target attacks, did you do any readings on that? Share with us.
Yes, the criminal code provides for various offenses and sanctions with respect to targeted attacks and other cybercrimes, including but not limited to fraud, extortion, theft, mischief, unauthorized use of computers, kidnapping, and more.
Wow, nice, Tyler. You did your research. Okay, class, so we'll move on to target attack. What is a target attack? Valerie. Okay, go ahead.
Targeted attacks employ similar tactics as online threats like malicious email sites, exploits, and malware. And to be considered a targeted attack, it must have these 3 main criteria. Attackers have to have a specific target in mind and will have spent considerable time, resources, and effort in the attack. The main point of the attack is to infiltrate the target's network and steal information. The attack is persistent and the attackers use considerable effort to ensure the attack continues beyond the initial infiltration.
Wow, nice. So we'll move on to phishing. Phishing is like a subheading of target attacks. It's a type of target attacks. And I'll give the definition of phishing. Cyber criminals use phishing as a technique to send fraudulent websites and deceptively worded emails and texts that are sent to the recipient where they take high-risk action in handing over their personal identifying information, passwords, or clicking a link that will infect their malware. Phishing techniques have evolved. Predators are now using more malicious threats like phishing, smishing, and ransomware. So phishing, smishing, and vishing, right? When phishing is used via SMS, the term changes to smishing. Smishing is used when cyber criminals use text messages asking the victim either to text or click a link in hopes of gaining their personal credentials. Predators can also use voice calls, also known as vishing, to try and trick the victim into giving them their personal credentials or to perform an action. So here's a video explaining phishing. Hope you enjoy.
You've probably seen it. You receive an email from your bank or trusted company, and it's asking you for information. It looks real, but it's designed to fool you into handing over important information. This is a scam called phishing, and you need to avoid it. Most of us have gotten used to doing business online. We buy and sell things. We have accounts with sensitive information. The risk of doing business online is low, as long as you deal directly with organizations you trust. Problems occur when criminals impersonate these organizations and fool you into handing over sensitive information like account numbers, passwords, and PIN numbers. The key to avoiding this scam is awareness. Here's one example. You receive an email that looks like a trustworthy message from a bank. It asks you to click a link to verify information. You assume it's legit, so you click the link and log into what appears to be your bank's website. At this point, the scam is complete. You've handed over your bank password to the crooks who can use it to take your money. Boo! They were able to fool you by impersonating the bank's website. There are a few keys to detecting phishing emails. They often try to scare you by saying your account has been accessed or security has been compromised. They also insist that you click a link to verify information or fill out a form. Do not click links or fill out forms in suspicious emails. The email may also have misspellings and call you something like valued customer. The crooks don't know your name. Remember, phishing emails may use the exact same logos, phone numbers, and addresses that appear on your statements or bills. Always be suspicious of an email that asks for your information. No exceptions. If you receive a phishing email, stay calm. There's no risk to receiving it. Just delete it. You can also safely report it by forwarding it to reportphishing@antiphishing.org or spam@uce.gov. If an email does lead you to a suspicious website, remember to look at the web address. The address in your browser should look familiar. If you suspect that criminals have your information, immediately contact organizations where you have accounts. To protect yourself in the long run, you might also consider anti-phishing software. Further, check your online accounts and credit reports regularly and quickly report anything that is out of place. Phishing scams are a growing threat on the internet. By being aware of the scam, you can feel confident in working with companies online. Yay!
Wow, interesting video. So we'll move on to spear phishing. What is spear phishing? Anyone?
I can answer this one. Just like phishing, spear phishing uses specific words to try and lure their victims into giving their personal credentials. In contrast, spear phishing targets one specific individual instead of sending various emails to random people. The predators pretend to know the victim, making their malicious techniques more believable. And this targeted attack is more personal as the predator has spent time and effort to do research on the victim.
Thank you, Valerie. You did your research. So does anyone knows the case where a spear phishing incident related to a university in 2017?
Yes, I know this one. A spear phishing email was blamed for an $11 million university. Was sent to accounts payable at the university from a building contractor working on the project, requested that further payments be rerouted to a different bank account. Police seized half the funds in a Montreal bank, and the remaining money was tracked using shell companies with corporate accounts, which were sometimes opened using stolen identities from multiple bank accounts. The spear phishing email turned out to be the beginning of an elaborate and complex fraud money laundering scheme.
Oh, nice. Hint, hint, guys, this will be on your midterm, so take notes. So how to prevent phishing and spear phishing attacks? Always be skeptical before clicking any links. Closely look at the email address. Do you recognize the email? Is there any grammatical errors in the text? Deny any email text calls that ask for your personal information. Note briefly. So points should be incorporated into any cybercrime prevention and cybercrime messaging related to phishing and spear phishing attacks, awareness, confirmation, personal information, and encrypted websites. Spare phishing, don't take the bait. So now, class, we'll move on to malware. Does anyone knows anything about malware? Would they like to share anything?
I can. Malware is malicious software and it includes ransomware, spyware, viruses, and worms. These are typically launched when the victim clicks a link or opens an attachment in an email sent to them. Once it's in the system, it can install additional harmful software, gathers data being sent over the network, and in the case of ransomware, it can even block key aspects of the network from the victim.
Nice. So that's good, Valerie. So anyone knows about malware as it relates to targeting mobile platforms?
Yes, the popularity and interconnectedness of mobile devices, such as smartphones, have made them an attractive target for criminal exploitation. Malware variants are increasingly being developed to target vulnerabilities found in mobile operating systems. Mobile device features are used to deploy malware and gain remote and unauthorized access to mobile platforms for various illicit purposes, such as stealing personal data and obtaining GPS coordinates. Thank you.
Ooh, nice. You guys are reading. So, okay, we're going to move on to ransomware. So it targets both humans and technical weaknesses. This target attack holds a computer network from their user, requesting either information or money while keeping their computer hostage. This attack is based on the crime of kidnapping. Ransomware quickly encrypts and allows sensitive data through the files inaccessible to its users. It's difficult to trace and seen through forms of spam emails. In the first 6 months of 2018, there were 181.5 ransomware attacks internationally. Victims take chances if they wish to pay the predator. 3/4 of victims pay their demands. So, as it relates to online mass marketing, fraud, and ransomware, Tyler, would you like to take it away?
Hi, yes. Links between peer and instrumental cybercrimes are arguably most common in fraud. The internet has transformed this long-standing criminal offense to an extent where mass marketing is now linked to many types of fraud. Internet-based mass marketing fraud such as phishing emails and romance scams are often used to deceive victims and steal personal identifiers for a variety of financially motivated criminal purposes. These scams easily target large populations across multiple jurisdictions. One of these fraud-based cybercrimes is exemplified through ransomware. Ransomware scams involve a type of malware that locks a computer and its data content and uses social engineering tactics such as threats to coerce victims into paying fees for regained computer access. Recent threats involving ransomware scams are described below.
So, ransomware scams. Go ahead, Tyler.
In 2012, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre received complaints from Canadians who were seeing fraudulent pop-up messages on their computer, stating that their operating system is locked due to a violation of laws of Canada. The illegitimate messages were designed to appear as instructions from the RCMP. These threats continue to affect Canadians and in 2013, the CAFC received over 2,800 reports from individuals who came across the latest variant of ransomware. The RCMP, the CAFC, and the government partners continue to mitigate ransomware threats through prevention tactics and other cybersecurity measures. Thank you.
Thank you. And class, please to jot down this information because it will be on your final exam. So virtual currency schemes. Virtual currency schemes such as Bitcoins are used by criminals to launder their proceeds online. These schemes provide organized crime networks with new means to hide their earnings from law enforcement. The criminal use of virtual currency is often associated with darknet, in which virtual currencies and anonymous online networks are used to obtain payments for illegal goods and services and launder their revenue associated with criminal transactions. How to prevent ransomware attacks. Back up your data, keep security software updated, avoid giving out personal data, avoid clicking on unverified links, and create strong passwords. Stop, think, and connect. Keep all your machines clean, get 2 steps ahead, back it up, make better passwords. When in doubt, throw it out. plug and scan. Please take these notes in mind. Be mindful. Don't waste your money and please enjoy this video.
Well, as we enter the holiday season, foreign scam artists are also gearing up for a big season of their own. Their newest approach, scams that threaten you. Consumer reporter John Mattery shows us what to watch for so you don't waste your money.
Remember when it was easy to spot an email scam? Someone claimed you were going to inherit millions of dollars from Africa. But those days are over. The FBI is now warning about a growing number of scams that now threaten you with fines, a utility disconnect, even arrest. Jennifer Werner earlier this year booted up her PC to find a strange web page had taken over her computer.
We saw a screen up on the computer and it had, like, I guess the FBI logo. And we thought that maybe someone in the house did something wrong or something.
The FBI alert said she had visited an illegal website, and to unlock it, it told her to pay a $200 fine. But it wasn't from the FBI. Rather, it was something called ransomware.
No, it is a bogus virus that people have gotten on their computer just by visiting a certain website. This virus is attached to their computer, and they'll get this screen saying that they've done something wrong.
The FBI says more and more scammers are turning to threats, which are much more likely to get your attention than a fake sweepstakes or inheritance scam. Several threat scams are now circulating. Another uses the IRS logo and email address. It claims there's been a problem with your tax return. And a third version uses your local utilities name, saying your gas and electric will be turned off if you don't pay your bill immediately by credit card or wire transfer.
But certainly don't send any money to any third party because it is probably a scam, and we don't want people to become victims of that.
Rather, check with the agency or Google the threat, which is how Jennifer Werner learned she was not under investigation. Not sure if it's real or not? Call the FBI, the police, or your utility provider and ask if it's really them. And remember to never wire or transfer money to anyone you don't know personally so you don't waste your money. I'm John Matters.
Nice. Detection, prevention, and enforcement. All cybercrime incidents are gathered into an annual survey, the Uniform Crime Reporting Survey. This survey describes incidents whereby information and communication are vital in the commission of an offense as outlined in the Criminal Code. In Canada in 2012, fraud accounted for more than 54% of the cybercrimes substantiated by police. So Tyler, could you explain about the CAFC?
Yes, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre is Canada's trusted source for reporting and mitigating online mass marketing fraud. It is a partnership among the RCMP, OPP, and the Competition Bureau. The CAFC is a central agency in Canada that collects information and criminal intelligence on matters such as mass marketing fraud, phishing, internet fraud, identity theft, and more.
Nice. The Anti-Phishing Working Group. Valerie?
The Anti-Phishing Working Group is an industry association focused on eliminating the identity theft and fraud that results from the growing problem of phishing and email spoofing, and it's affiliated with Stop, Think, Connect.
Everyone, stop, think, and connect. Canada's Canadian Cyber Incident Response Center. So Tyler, could you give us an explanation on this?
Yes, the CCIRC is the entity within the federal government entrusted with coordinating the response to cybersecurity incidents of national interest and protecting critical infrastructure. It is Canada's national computer emergency readiness team, and its three main objectives are to reduce cyber vulnerability and risk, provide effective cyber response, and coordinate with partners.
Thank you. So Valerie, could you tell us about the top 5 most notorious cyber attacks?
I can. The number one most notorious was the WannaCry, where it spread quickly over the internet and local networks, and it was a ransomware. Number 2 was NotPetya and Xverter, the costliest attack to date, and it was estimated at $10 billion worth of damage, and it moved through the web, and it was a worm. Stuxnet was a malware which disrupted the uranium enrichment centrifuges in Iran. It slowed down the country's nuclear power program for several years. Number 4 was Dark Hotel, And when he connected to a hotel's Wi-Fi, the victim was prompted to download a software update that seemed legitimate, and upon infection, it began to log all keystrokes. And the last one was Mireille, and this was a botnet, and Mireille decided to test the capabilities of this, and it flooded the DNS server of DIN, and it overloaded everything, and basically it crashed. So anything that depended on it was unable to access its services.
Thank you, Valerie. So cybercrime requires a new way of policing. The criminal exploitation of new and emerging technologies such as cloud computing and social media platforms, anonymous online network and virtual currency scheme requires new policing measures to keep pace in a digital era. Addressing these challenges requires broad-based domestic and international law enforcement cooperation engagement with public and private sector organizations, and integrating new technical skills and tools with traditional policing measures. So technology creates new opportunities for criminals. Tyler, could you explain this?
Yes, the internet and related technologies have reshaped Canada's society and economy. Also, they've changed Canada's criminal landscape. Online markets and internet-facing devices provide the same opportunities and benefits for serious and organized criminal networks as they do for legitimate businesses. Widely available and ready-made malware tools which can be bought, sold, or exchanged online provide criminals with new and simplified ways to steal personal information and cause monetary loss to Canadian businesses and citizens.
Thank you. And in conclusion for class today, this report provides a primer on targeted attacks and cybercrime threats and trends that harm Canada's public organization, business interests, and citizens in real and tangible ways. It highlights a number of issues in the cybercrime environment to demonstrate the range of offenses in Canada's criminal code that falls under the cybercrime and target attack. I know you guys might be tired, so we're gonna go for a recess.
All right, guys, thanks for group number 4. Appreciate that. So now we're going to move to the last presentation. So it's group number 5. So who is going to be the host for this?
I will.
Ishat?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just find you here now. Okay, I'll get you. There we go. Okay, Ishat, you're now the host, so take it away.
Conducting online investigations by Jenna.
Okay, we're not getting the sound.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh.
It's not loud enough.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Officers and different units within the. Can you hear now? Have different. Is it loud? Is it loud now?
Let it play.
Okay. Internet, email, and different computer resources that will help them to develop a case.
That's good. So take it back to the beginning then, Ishat, and then.
Okay. Intelligence, they. A little bit more. Right.
Conducting Online Investigations and Solving Crimes by Jenna, Ashot, Danica, and William.
What is an online investigation? An online investigation is used in law enforcement by providing officers the ability to analyze and track down criminals or bullies who have committed a crime. Police officers and different units within the department have different policy and procedure when dealing with a crime online. With those policies, they may use outlets such as internet, email, and different computer resources that will help them to develop a case. Open source intelligence is an open intelligence and within the policy, and the policy officer must follow, that is commonly used for public resources. Police department have the ability to conduct these online investigations. However, there are search and seizure rights people have and can utilize, meaning unless the officer provide reasonable evidence and receive a warrant to search, they cannot. When conducting an online investigation, officers must remember the policy, especially knowing they have access to CPIC, CPIC, which stands for Canadian Police Information Center, and allow officers in each Canadian policy agency to have access to the same information. This could mean names, addresses, criminal records, warrants, and many more. Police may also use sources from an individual's social media, as it plays an extreme prominent role in today's society and to aid in the investigation. The investigation itself takes patience and a structured plan of where to start. Most online investigations start like any other where the officer gathers information and starts to form a timeline of events, suspect, victim, and location. From there, they may start with known searches, meaning Google, and then begin to search more unknown sites such as social media, court records, and businesses. This is a short video that outlines 4 ways police may search files and data on your computer.
People ask me, when are the police? And when I say computers, I'm talking about your desktop, laptop, your tablets, external hard drives, zip drives, even your smartphone. And the answer is that generally speaking, there's only 4 situations where the cops are allowed to search your computer. The first is if they have a valid search warrant. But even then, we can often challenge the search warrant itself in court if the search warrant out. The second situation is if you consent, you agree to let them search your computer. And I tell people, never, ever consent to let them search your computer. Because even if you think that you have nothing to hide, you never know how the authorities may try to use your data. The third situation where cops are allowed to search your computers is at the border or at airports. You cross the border, or you go to the airport, the police have said that you have a lesser expectation of privacy. Many times, police are allowed to search that. The fourth situation is emergency circumstances. This would be, for example, a scenario where you're suspected of being a terrorist And the police believe that on your laptop is a map that shows the location of the bomb. They simply don't have time to go get a warrant. But the fact is, these situations are very rare. So absent one of these circumstances, having a warrant, having your consent, an airport or border search, or an emergency situation, absent one of these scenarios, the police are not allowed to search the files on you. If you've been arrested or charged with a crime based on a police search of one of your computers, we invite you to contact us here at Shouts Law. We've had a lot of success in challenging these searches in court, getting the evidence excluded.
Yeah, so as I said before, the video just outlined four ways police may search your files and data on your computer. Also, these are the definitions that we found from the textbook, chapter 10. And these are some definitions that assist officers in their initial investigation. We have WHOIS. WHOIS is a search that provides information regarding a domain name. This could mean name, address, email, phone number, and contacts of the owner. This is also able to tell investigator if that domain is active or for sale. And we have ICANN, which means Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. Define IP addresses on the internet, and because each one is different, it makes it possible for investigators to find addresses. Then we have CIRA, which is the Canadian Internet Registration Authority. They operate. They are the operator that manage all the .ca domain, adds permit search items into registry database. Then we have CANLI, which is the Canadian Legal Information Institute. It is a non-profit organization that provides Canadian legal information from all Canadian jurisdictions. You will find court judgment, tribunal decision, and statutes or registration on this site. Examples of cyber crimes that police investigate. We have phishing scams, which is someone who is trying to gather your personal information for their benefits. They do this by creating fake web page or email links, and once you press on them, they expose your computer to a virus where they can now obtain access to your information. We also have identity theft scam. It's someone who has gained access to your personal and financial information and is now pretending to be you. We have online harassment or cyberbullying. This is most common and used to harm someone, usually through blackmail from a picture or text, so that person can do whatever the criminal is asking. So that they will not link the personal photo or information. This can also be done through social media, and it can be a great source for people to be through words and photos. Then we have cyber stalking. These are the people who want to harm others and usually use the internet to lure people in and learn their information, only to use it to hurt them. The most common cases are with young children who believe they are talking to one person when in reality it is most likely someone older looking to expose them if they do not do as they ask. So right now we're going to talk about the social media role in online investigation.
Social media's role in online investigations. Investigators are allowed to use information acquired from social media sites such as TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, etc. The information acquired must be relevant to the crime being investigated at the time, which then the court can decide to use as open source intelligence. Social media has been and can be used to help identify acquaintances, financial network statuses, locations, and timestamps through metadata. Examples of this are using photos to identify location through the location stamps on the actual photos themselves. Through social media, governments have been able to identify potential terrorists through groups, ISIS as an example, with their online presence. Apps such as Snapchat, we feel delete information if not saved by the party involved, can actually be obtained if given a warrant powerful enough to Snapchat, who keeps this data file in their servers. This is taken from our actual personal talk with the guest speakers this class. In this video we're about to see, it is called How Social Media Changes Crimes. This is a video that showcases law enforcement in Florida, showing 3 different cases, how social media helped solve. Canadian law enforcement uses the same tactic.
Facebooking a felony. A crime might not be the first thing that comes to mind when you think of social media, but investigators say it's happening. It's upping their workload, but it's also a major tool when it comes to solving cases. Tonight, 4 in Your Corner's Lisa Greenberg explaining the latest trends in this special report.
Well, you may use social media to share and connect with your friends, but now more than ever, crooks are using it to commit crimes. A Cleveland man captivates and horrifies millions by shooting a stranger to death and posting the video on Facebook. A woman out of Lakeland bouncing around a Chuck E. Cheese on Facebook Live.
While we're on Facebook Live, voila, we discovered this lady who has outstanding warrant.
Leading deputies straight to her and closer to home.
Oh my God.
A sale through Facebook in Cape Coral ending in a theft and eventually arrest.
I want to make an example out of this kid.
What do all of these cases have in common? Social media. It's changed the way crooks commit crimes, but it's also changed how investigators solve them.
Which really upped the workload.
Captain Anthony Sizemore with the Cape Coral Police Department tells me before social media, a crime scene typically involved a house, a car, a physical place where a crime happened. Now, the borders of an investigation are almost limitless.
People do put their entire life on Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, Kik.
But with that, the old-fashioned analytical police work is almost done for them.
A lot of people are quite open about what they've done, their exploits, who they associate with.
Yeah, I showed him the phone and everything.
When Jared Hamilton turned to Facebook to sell an iPhone,
I didn't take the time to look into the profile or anything like that, but I agreed to meet up with him in Cape Coral.
and when he did, this happened.
Oh my God.
Detectives used his conversation with the thief on the Barter King's Facebook page,
We were able to go back to digital format to find out who's who,
plus the video his wife took of the incident,
actually use the victim's wife's phone. We put it out, we'll share it.
to make an arrest for grand theft and battery. But is it always so easy to nab crooks using social media? Captain Sizemore says, just like any other piece of evidence, it has to be verified and proven.
Never is it a silver bullet.
And if the evidence is strong enough to make an arrest, will it hold up in a courtroom?
Anything that you put
Attorney
out
Scott Goldberg says nothing is off limits.
there, they're allowed to get our clients' Facebook information, go onto that Facebook page, and get the information from there, the photos, things that they've said. And it can be very damning if people aren't careful.
Goldberg says he even uses social media to investigate his own clients.
We have to know what our clients are doing, what they're saying, what the witnesses are doing, what the defendant's doing and saying, and all of that comes from social media.
And in the always evolving world of social media, to keep crime under control, investigators are constantly working to stay on top of it.
There's always a new app, there's always a new way for people to broadcast what they're doing, try to hide what they're doing, be right out in the open about what they're doing for us to find it. So if you're not constantly learning, checking and digging and sourcing social media platforms, you're behind as a law enforcement agency.
All right, and if you want to see more of Lisa's story, you can go to our website. It's fox4now.com.
deep web versus the surface web. Deep web makes it a lot harder for investigators to actually find information. Surface web is what we see every day: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, as well as Google and many other platforms. On the surface web, we can find IP addresses quickly. The deep web hides these information through rerouting IP addresses all over various states, provinces, and countries. With how intricate and secure the deep web has become, a lot of criminal enterprises have begun to move their activity there, be it selling credit cards, social insurance numbers, guns, narcotics, pictures, videos, or even. With how vast and deep the web is and intricate, it is almost impossible for police to pinpoint the correct person.
So right now we're gonna talk about online human sex trafficking and the steps that police the step that police takes when they are doing their investigation and everything about it.
Yeah, so sexual human trafficking definition. Every person who recruits, transports, transferred, hold, conceals, or harbors a person or exercises control, direction, or influence over the movement of a person for the purpose of sexually exploiting them or facilitating their sexual exploitation. Sex trafficking is one of the fastest growing organized crimes in the world, estimated making over 99 billion US profits for the International Labor Organization. In 2013, the RCMP reported that one sex trafficking victim can generate between $168,000 and $336,000 a year, and they may run an entire stable. Last year, Toronto police cited the example of a young woman who brought in $90,000 in 3 months. The marketing for girls has been moved to online classified advertisements such as Craigslist, Facebook, and Backpage.com. Police officers and RCMP tend to pretend to be an interested buyer when on these websites and try to catch traffickers and other brothels taking place. The ads use code words that the police RCMP look for, such as fresh, innocent, new to seen, young girl / boy, available 24/7, meet up at a specific time, or mention their race and gender. So here's just a graph just explaining what they caught people sex trafficking on. There's been recent lower numbers of findings for human sex trafficking through these websites, meaning for possible new websites, or the dark web is being used more often. So the next slide is about child pornography, which means photographic, film, video, or other visual representation, whether or not it was made by electronic or mechanical means, that shows a person who is or is disposed as being under the age of 18 years and is engaged in or disposited as engaged in sexual activity. In 2019 alone, technology firms flagged 45 million video photos of child sexual abuse in investigations by the New York Times. This is how the law enforcement officers catch pedophiles using child pornography crimes. They search file sharing sites for common terms used. If files found, IP address can be traced sometimes. Law enforcement officers pose as young children online or people interested in buying, trading child pornography. Honeypots, aka illegal images, are placed on the dark web by law enforcement to see who download illegal images. If found with material involved with child pornography, law enforcement can take any devices from your home that can be involved. Deleting these files do not protect you from special databases to recover deleted information. So this video is just describing how law enforcement track pedophiles and shows a known case.
Child pornography is more prevalent than ever online. And that's according to the FBI. And as criminals get more tech savvy, it's tougher to find them.
This afternoon, the FBI announced that agents arrested this man, a 19-year-old from Troutdale. He's accused of convincing children to send him sexually explicit pictures. KGW's Lindsay Nadrick sat down with a detective today who's working to fight online sexual exploitation like this.
The number of child porn images online is horrific. Is it more prevalent than it ever has been?
Oh, yeah.
The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received 18.4 million reports of images of child sex abuse last year, and tech companies reported 45 million explicit images of children. That's more than ever before. And detectives say it's in part because it's easier than ever to access.
It's a touch away. It's a convenience that it's not like when you buy drugs, you have to physically go out and you have to find somebody usually to buy the drug. Here, it's a click away.
Beaverton detective Chad Opitz is a member of the FBI's Child Exploitation Task Force. He showed me a little of what he does to track down predators.
So this is somebody I was talking to earlier, and he knows that I'm underage, and he wants a picture.
Detective Opitz is posing as an underage boy or girl on social media sites, and it doesn't take long for him to find someone who's interested.
So again, it's a, hey, male 17, see, and then right away. So that's a perfect example. It took 3 messages from him, 2 replies from me. I'd say I'm a 14-year-old, and he was already asking for nudes.
As you saw, within seconds, he was asked for nude photos. But it's not just happening on the dark corners of the web. It's happening on mainstream websites like Facebook, which according to the FBI is the lead reporter of explicit images of children.
It's almost mind-boggling because the answer is we see it everywhere. You name an app that has a lot of users and there's the potential for abuse to be happening on it.
We just sadly get countless cyber tips and actual sexual abuse cases where or exploitation cases where either the child has agreed to meet up and has met with this person, or they will send photos.
On Friday, the FBI arrested a 19-year-old Troutdale man named Anthony Lazowski on child exploitation charges. The FBI says Lazowski used social media to get kids to send him sexually explicit videos and images of themselves. He's also accused of extorting at least one girl who said he threatened to share the images of her if she didn't travel to meet him for sex. There are 2 known victims, but the FBI says there could be more.
Our group, this task force exists because awful things happen to kids. And if you dwell on that's super depressing. And so again, caring about the kids and putting in that work in and really go after the offenders. And I think that's why, again, speaking for everyone that I think works these types of cases, that's important to us.
And it's important to talk to your kids about what to do if they're asked for photos or videos of themselves online. The FBI created a guide just for kids. We've posted a link to that on kgw.com. I'm Lindsay Nadrich, KGW News.
Or parents checking that link out.
And we thank the detectives for.
So that's the end of the presentation. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody. ASHAT and group, thanks very much. Okay, everybody, so that's it. Thank you very much. Everybody put a lot of work into these, so that's great. I really do appreciate it. So if you can send me your score sheets in the next day or 2, that would be super. I'll get them and obviously score them and give you credit for doing that. And so that's it. We're all done. So again, thanks for the class. I really do appreciate your attention. And be ready to receive the Google form on Friday at 7 o'clock for your final exam. If you have any questions in the meantime, just send me an email. All right, guys, thank you very much. Good night now.